Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Saturday Smackdown. Today we do have H2O vs IrishFaithful. And if you head on over to eso-community.net, you will notice that as of the time of recording, these two players are currently ranked first and second with regards to their ELO rating. Yeah, so based on that, arguably sort of the two most highly ranked players in the game playing a best of 7 for us today. And I say arguably because IrishFaithful traditionally really only a French player. Certainly a very, very good French player who has done very, very well on ladder, which is clearly evident by the ELO rating he's racked up. He's beaten lots of good players, including H2O, several times, as you can see on his ELO page. But Smackdown and tournament settings generally require you to play multiple civilizations, and high-level players usually can always do that, and certainly IrishFaithful is no exception. A definitely worthwhile and really good series, actually. But something to think about, I suppose. There is that. And I said best of 7, yes, I did say that, and you might be looking at the length of this video thinking, I don't think so, this is a fairly short one. And you might be wondering how this could possibly be a best of 7. Well, you're right, this video isn't a best of 7. It's actually just one game from the series, a taster of the series, I suppose. The rest of the series is available on ZutaZuta's YouTube channel. Yes, he has a YouTube channel now. Actually, he's always had one. There's a video on that channel from like 7 years ago about Age of Empires 3, which I thought was actually quite fun to watch. So go and find that. It's a cool little video, actually. But yeah, definitely more Age of Empires 3 action coming your way from Zuta on YouTube. Do subscribe to his channel. But I thought it would be nice to sort of direct you all to that channel for this particular Smackdown. If you wanted to watch the whole thing, that is. As a kind of like debut introducing his channel for the first time kind of thing. So a link to the whole Smackdown that happened is available in the description of this video. It will take you to ZutaZuta's YouTube channel. This channel is just one game. It was a pretty good game. It was my favorite game, so I decided to show that here. And without further ado, enjoy the video. Looks like we're busting out the big guns here.
There it is. Here
comes the French. H2O also going to be playing French here. Straight up mirror matches. And not surprised by H2O's decision to want to do that.
I'm curious about this one, though, because this is the matchup. If you look at the ELO rating, IrishFaithful like dismantled H2O like 5 games in a row playing French mirrors, and that was the matchup. That was the bit of ELO page that made me think like, wow, I want to see these two guys playing like in a best of 7 series.
Yeah, this is the money shot right here. This is the golden game. This is the interesting one, and the result will be fun to say the least. Who's your money on then, Zuta? If you had to place a bet,
I'm gonna pick IrishFaithful. I'm gonna pick IrishFaithful. H2O plays French well, but they're never like the Civ that I have associated with him. You know, you have like Civ associations with players.
Yeah.
And I know he plays French very well, but when I think of Ryan as a player, I think of Japan and India and Dutch, and to some degree maybe so Brits.
Too. Yeah.
But like French would be like Civ 5 or 6 that I would associate with him.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, there's that. So, yeah, I mean, clearly IrishFaithful, if you take a look at the ladder and if you take a look at the games he's actually played and, you know, his current ELO rating, definitely his best Civ, as we're pointing out. H2O, though, is going to match it, and we'll see. Maybe H2O has become accustomed to Faithful's style in the games that he has played with him on ladder, and maybe has sussed him out, so to speak. Maybe we'll see another decisive victory out of H2O. Who knows? This is the interesting one, though. This is the interesting match, and it's about to get underway on the Great Plains, or the High Plains, I should say, saving recorded games. Let's start with IrishFaithful in the north of the map in the colour red. Indeed, playing as the French, here he is, spawning with a 40 coin treasure in the back of his face, a 30 coin treasure on the front. That's exactly what he wants to see there. You know, just the 50 coin that he requires for hunting dogs. And I think the interesting thing is to see if H2O gets the same. Yes, he gets the 50 coin and a 30 food treasure as well, which I would argue is actually slightly better, though still very, very sort of insignificant. Oftentimes, you're not even going to go for that coyote, as it's kind of a waste of time, and you might want to get out onto the map and find other treasures, such as this 80 wood treasure that H2O comes across. Going to be pretty pleased about that. Let's take a look at the other treasures that H2O might find. But of course, here is H2O in the south of the map. He's going to have the same crates as his opponent, as that's the way the crate rotation works in mirror matchups. In fact, in all matchups, you'll have similar crates to your opponent, give or take the few that differs because of the civilization. But 80 wood, there it is, and nearby there is, of course, 2 stray sheep. Probably not going to be very impactful or useful, not going to be going for that. And actually, aside from the 80 wood, really nothing in this area that H2O is going to come across. So, and I think that really ends his sort of treasure collecting, the interest of it. For Red, though, he is, of course, using that coin to, or I assume he would have been. He's not actually built a market at all, and is not going to be making use of that market. Nor is H2O, actually. This is interesting, Zuta. No markets.
Yeah, so I think, so if we scroll up in the chat, you see the first thing that Ryan said was, we got your crates too. And if you consider the crates that were the start, it was the extra food crate start, right? So in this particular matchup, both of these civs can basically you'll always get a set number of food crates and at least 1 wood crate, and then a random crate, either a coin crate, a wood crate, or a food crate.
Look at this! So, oh, the 80 food treasure. The CDB gonna be picking that up. Oh, he doesn't get it. But ambition at its best. I would have loved to have seen that. It's always wasting the villager seconds there, because this guy hasn't been gathering. He was using it to herd of clearly this dead animal there, and another one now. This hunt, and he saw the scouted area and tried to go for it. There's the expletive in the chat. Wasn't too happy about getting that, but I like the ambition. I think it was, if you do get that, that's a big food difference. You think 80 less for your opponent and 80 more for you. That's what, 160 food or something like that. But no markets because of the crates. You said they start with extra food. Is that right?
Right, and that's what I wanted to go back to, because I think what IrishFaithful likes to do, and I've only looked at some of the ELO games, right, and so I'm just inferring build orders based off of what I've seen there, but I think he likes to do like the very aggressive 13 CDB age up with like the aggressive 8 Hussar build that we see quite often, right, where basically you build a stable, age on 13 CDB, no market, nothing like that, and then you send 3 Hussar and train 3 Hussar, or build 5 Hussar, and you get 8 Hussar out really, really quick. And that build is really strong against a whole bunch of builds, because 1, you're aging up 1 villager pop earlier, so you're going to get up like 20 seconds or so earlier. And 2, not a lot beats 8 Hussar straight out the gates at the start of the game.
No.
In fact, almost nothing beats 8 Hussar straight out the gates early in the game. And so I think that's what we're going to see out of IrishFaithful. We can see he's at 13 pops, so he's aging up early, and he's switched a bunch of villagers over to wood, and we'll see what he ends up doing. It looks like he's going to drop down that trading post initially, but I'm curious to see what the follow-up will be behind this, whether or not he is going to start swapping things over to get his eco in line to be able to deal that kind of super aggressive build, or maybe he'll do something completely different and surprise us all.
Yeah, well, market's coming down from both players either way. H2O just about to finish his Hunting Dogs upgrade, and by the looks of it, IrishFaithful intending to do exactly the same. Their placer mine's now coming down for H2O as well. I'm also interested to see whether it's going to be this cavalry start. 400 wood on the floor now, of course, for both players, and we're going to see... Well, yeah, certainly now that both players just hit up. And we're going to see their choice of military buildings. If it's the stable, certainly... Yeah, there it is. There it is for IrishFaithful. So stable on the cards... Sorry, I mean stable down. So certainly the 8 Hussar build on the cards. Will he commit to that, though? It feels as if H2O's doing the same thing. Or no, he's slowing down to get steel traps by the looks of it. He's going to go for the stable nonetheless, though.
Yeah, and I think this is... an adaptation by H2O, right? Like, I think he's played enough French mirrors here, and he's probably played against this build enough to infer that this is what IrishFaithful likes to do, and what perhaps he will do, as IrishFaithful throws us all for a loop and immediately sends 4 CDB and makes our assumption that he's doing something super aggressive completely invalid.
Well, the fact that he built a stable never committed him to sending or doing 8 Hussars, but certainly it made it possible, and I suppose more likely. Actually, what we see here is something more economic from him, right? 4 villagers coming out, going to establish his early game economy, which is that more traditional style of French that I suppose Samwise sort of pioneered and made popular a long time ago that is now considered standard. Second trading post does come out of the red player there, and I imagine from his next shipment we're quite likely to see, I suppose actually 700 coin, or perhaps wood, depending on which order he'd like to send them in. But either way, certainly those two cards will be quite likely to come out of IrishFaithful. And here actually nothing aggressive or colonial, and I think indeed actually going to be some Fortress Age play. H2O though starting with 700 wood, and has got a barracks here and is stable. Looks like he's playing in a style that is very easy to adapt to what his opponent will do. He's not committing to any particular build by the looks of it, and is trying to remain flexible so that he can respond to his opponent in any way. Has the infrastructure and capability to build really any unit, and his next shipment can really be anything, and from this point he can turn his build into whatever he wants.
Yeah, actually the interesting thing about what H2O is doing here is this is a style that was actually really popular in like 2006 by big French players back in the day, like people like Orc and Luigi. Some of the Squiz boys, they played builds like this all the time, where they would open stable like you would in like a team game or something, and then send 700 wood and use it as like a flex shipment, where you either drop a bunch of TPs or you drop a Rex. But certainly it was before the times of doing like the Rex and the stable on the 400 wood at the same time, and you would essentially just use the 700 wood to build a barracks, and that's like the exact style that H2O is doing in this particular game, and it's kind of a throwback to like super old school Age of Empires. Like it is like circa 2006, this kind of build, like this playstyle.
What is this to achieve then? Do you think this is to compensate for the fact that IrishFaithful, you know, could be playing that aggressive 8 cav that you mentioned? He could be doing the semi-FF that is actually what he's doing. He could really be doing any number of things that French is capable of doing, and as a result H2O wants to remain flexible and is playing a build like this though. But, you know, yes, all these things I'm saying are true, but equally, what's wrong with the so-called Samwise build that is perhaps equally as flexible?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing about the Samwise build is it's actually not quite as flexible, right? Because you send the 700 wood, which you immediately commit to the racks and the stable right off the bat, versus the 700 wood a little bit later. You don't necessarily have to build the barracks with the 700 wood. Just because H2O did elect to build the stable on the 700 wood doesn't mean he was committed to it, right? Yeah. Or the racks, right? He could have gotten any number of TPs. He could even sync that into like the second coin mining tech, amalgamation, if he wanted, something like that, right? So it's not as committed as immediately dropping the racks and the stable at the same time, and then pumping out units, and then just using the 700 wood essentially for population space, right? They accomplish similar things, but the Samwise build gets out more units of both types slightly earlier, but loses some of the flexibility of like, do I want a barracks, do I not want a barracks, something like that.
Yeah, okay, so what we see, you know, from H2O, yeah, as we mentioned, the ability to be flexible, both these buildings here, does get some cavalry out and does sort of run around his opponent, sort of dealing some damage there, forcing him to, you know, bell his units up and stuff like that. It does have now some Dragoons, the red player, which is causing, you know, quite a lot of problems for these Hussars. The Minutemen do come out, though. Actually, IrishFaithful doing a good job of kiting back, staying out of range of those Minutemen, and getting lots of shots off on those Hussars, getting lots of value out of that. So a nice exchange from IrishFaithful is going to be pretty pleased with that. H2O, though, sees his opponent going up to the next stage, and as I mentioned, as we keep mentioning, he's able to remain flexible, sends 700 gold of his own, and then follows him up to the next stage here, and is going to try and, you know, continue the game in the Fortress Age. And so far, I think IrishFaithful done a pretty good job. He's going to be happy about the number of cav he managed to kill with his goons and sort of the pressure he's putting on H2O here, forcing these CDBs around, trying to kill the units here. But at the moment, fairly even game, I would say, despite the military unit population. But I'm sure that'll bounce back up when his first shipment from the Fortress Age arrives, which will be any second now. Yeah, and it's important to note that they do both have two trading posts, so they're going to have similar shipment progressions here as well. IrishFaithful got aged up slightly earlier to both age 2 and age 3, so shipment progression is slightly ahead in that regard, but in terms of raw XP, they should have about the same shipments, and it looks like 8 skirm coming out for both players. Both sides having a couple Dragoons, a few Hussar left over as well, so truthfully, all things combined into one, they're at about the same relative strength at this point in the game. IrishFaithful 7 skirms coming out. We'll see what H2O's next shipment is. Perhaps going to give him
a little bit more of the comfort that he probably needs to step out here a little bit further forward. I suspect he'll go back and seize that second.
And like, he has quite the number of skirmishes here with really no anti-cavalry. He does, we see Dragoons and absolutely on time, right? He's not going to want to stand out in the middle of the map with these skirmishes for too long because they really have nothing there to protect them. Of course, his opponent is playing French, he knows that, and he's in the Fortress Age. The likely combination of units here is going to be something like skirmishers and Dragoons, which is very safe, very strong, and, if his opponent does send cannons, it's not like cannons can chase your skirms down and punish them. You can always run away from those. It's, I guess, cuirassiers with those, the cavalry units that he's a bit afraid of, but not going to commit to standing in the middle of the map, and also he doesn't really have the units to be doing that. H2O is a little bit behind in terms of economic unit population, 2 villages, not very much, and he's also a whole shipment behind, since of course IrishFaithful has been up in the Fortress Age long enough to be a shipment ahead in terms of progression, meaning that he's always going to have a slight advantage, I suppose, as to when that arrives. He's going to be ahead, until H2O's arrives, and as a result of that, he does sort of have the initiative in this game. At this point, very, very even, and now, H2O's composition's been evened up. He's got his Dragoons out. He's going to be a bit safer here, but H2O's running out of food, Zuta, and soon he's going to have to push out into the middle of the map, and at that point, it's, I suppose, going to be IrishFaithful favoured, where he's going to have, the ability to stand on the hunt and cause problems for him.
Yeah, and just getting aged up slightly earlier, IrishFaithful can do stuff like stand over here, right? Which is, if H2O were to do his equivalent spot, is like right over here. If he were to do that, all of a sudden he would feel very exposed, and that's just because of where Irish's army is standing in regards relative to where the resources actually lie on this map. Soon, though, I suspect H2O, especially now that the 7 skirm has come out, is going to be able to kind of push back into the middle of the map. We'll kind of draw a battle line here right in the middle, and then at that point, I think H2O will feel slightly more comfortable sneaking out to one of these 2 locations to continue to be able to get a hunt. But certainly is something he has to be aware of as this game progresses, is how is he going to secure his hunting. And I mean, in mid-game, in the 12 to 13 minute mark where, your 3rd, 4th hunt starts to become an issue, that's usually one of the biggest things we end up looking for, especially in these European cities.
All right, it looks like we do have some progression in terms of movement here. H2O, okay, perhaps not. His units were moving up towards this trading post. His Dragoons certainly were. Heading back towards the middle of the map now, as we can see CDBs coming out. Just want to herd those units back towards his base. H2O, with his colonial age cavalry, the hussars, he did manage to even up the economic unit population a little bit. He's now actually ahead. He managed, by the looks of it, killed about 3 villagers. I'm not sure if you could capture that. I certainly didn't see it.
Was it me? Okay. I thought it was like I was letting them drop anything after the issues I had last.
Oh god.
No, it looked like it was just like yeah, just more skirmishing here, back and forth in the middle. Oh, and here comes the 2 falconets for IrishFaithful. That's going to be a big decision point now.
Yeah, this is a key point in the game, right? Like, he's chosen to send these cannons. You often mention that it makes him very immobile, and that's true, but these represent a huge sort of defensive ability. He's going to push these hunts very, very easily, and now H2 is going to have to find a way to deal with that, and I think the way to deal with them will probably be sending cannons of his own. But yeah, this is a big point in the game. Like, he sent his cannon shipment, and it's like, what do I do about that?
Yep. Especially when he's behind the shipment progression, right? And he needs hunt. He's really starting to run out of hunt. He has to be able to get out here in the middle of the map. He's got villagers already spread out here quite a bit. He has to hope that 2 falconets of his own are coming. Either that, or he's got to make some sort of big transition into cuirassiers to be able to deal with those 2 falconets in an adequate way.
Yeah, there they are. 2 falcons coming out, and this is big right now. The falc fight is very, very important, and how the outcome of this fight is going to have huge implications on the rest of the game, because H2O really needs to win this fight. He's invested in this because, look, where's his hunt? He's going to, I mean, at the moment he does have, I suppose, one that's fairly safe, but yeah, so here we go. Let's see how this works out. Is there any way that H2O can abuse the fact that...
the CDBs?
Oh, okay, going to bring them in, yeah, and that's going to cause some concern for the red player. Any stray shots that are just being attacked move off. They're going to, target those CDB. They're going to sponge that up. It looks like the 2 falconets are just going to be chased by the Dragoons there in hand combat. They do still deal 2x2, and yes, Red's doing something similar to Blue's Falconets, but all this time, you have to remember these skirmishers of Blue are actually punishing the Dragoons, and this is a horrible trade that Red just made. He's no longer got his Falconets. IrishFaithful just quits. GG out there. Probably not too happy. PJ Soul in the chat. All of Blue's Dragoons are still alive. They were not punished for targeting the Falconets, whereas Red ones were, and he still has a Falconet up on 15 HP. That was a really volatile end to a fairly even game.
Yeah, I mean, everything was really even right up until the two Falconets, and then H2O was in just a slightly better position. Yeah. I think IrishFaithful froze when he saw those CDBs.
Yeah, right? I think that really panicked him. Yeah,
because, I mean, the CDB, obviously, if they get in the hand mode, they're going to punish the two Falconets very, very quickly. Yeah. And so I think he was like split between trying to just like run his Falconets away from the CDBs and like, should I bring my army back to try and kill these CDBs and just kite everything back while taking skirmisher damage? Like, I think he kind of froze when those 5 or 6 CDBs started sneaking in on him from the right side, and then H2O just ended up getting in a much better position. He got his skirmishers right on top of the Dragoons, able to deal with them quite effectively, keep one of his Felks alive, and then IrishFaithful's Falconets were just sent on kind of a suicide mission to run off into the map while the Dragoons just hunted him down and killed him, and ended up just not being a good trade for him, and H2O finds himself with a huge advantage after the little Falconet exchange. But truth be told, IrishFaithful was so close to just getting H2O like completely built up in his base. Look at H2O doesn't have anywhere to gather hunts anymore. Had this like gone on for another minute or two, H2O would be completely out of resources in his base, and IrishFaithful was so close to just keeping him pinned in and never letting him out.
Yeah, I really would like to see an alternative outcome to this game where the Falconet fight, or the fighting here was handled differently, and to see how the game would have progressed because of that. As I mentioned, it was important for H2O to win the Falconet fight, or at least come out on even. If his opponent was able to stand there with the cannons, as you mentioned, where is he going to gather food? He's not going to have those locations. He's going to run out very quickly. But if he could even up the Falconets and bring it back down to just skirmisher and dragoon combat, would have been an interesting game, and I'd like to have seen where that had gone. I thought when IrishFaithful's cannons did arrive that H2O might have been able to sort of... What do you think of this? I mean, like, I mentioned the mobility thing, and I thought, was there an option for H2O to then go and do something that, really abuses the fact that now IrishFaithful had committed to an army that wasn't very good at moving around very quickly? Yeah,
and I think the other important thing to mention as well is... One thing that I forget who told me this or gave me this insightful piece of wisdom. I think it was someone like Emil Chalet, the very good French player, just really good overall player who loved to use cannons and was very good with using cannons. Oftentimes, getting the first volley off with your Falconets isn't important. It's getting them in the right position so that they're able to be continually effective. And if you take a look at that game and think back to the situation that H2O was in, he had his skirmishers forward, and because of the high range and the high line of sight that skirmishers have, he saw the angle that the Falconets were coming at from IrishFaithful. He saw where they were compared to where they were standing near the Dragoons, what angle they were going to be coming from. And he was able to maneuver his cannons. I don't know if you saw, but he split up his cannons. Oftentimes when you just drag them together, they go walking side by side right next to each other. He actually split up his cannons, so one was on the southwest flank and one was on the southeast flank, and kind of had them split up momentarily so that they would be harder to pick off in tandem, and then started sneaking those CDB around. So I think another little advantage that H2O got there that would be really easy to overlook was having the skirmishers there up on the front lines in the middle of the map, able to see with their line of sight where the Falconets were coming from and what angle they were taking towards the army, allowed him to get the villagers and his own cannons in a better position to realistically be able to deal with the army. And then he just got them set up in the right spot, and he didn't even get any shots off with them, right? But we could see both players obviously placed high amounts of value on them, willing to sack basically all of their Dragoons to attempt to get them, and H2O came out significantly better as a result of the trade. So,
Yeah, absolutely, and does win the game as a result of that. Could have played it out, I suppose, IrishFaithful, but I'm sure he wouldn't have lasted particularly long. It's quite clear that he would have been pushed back to his base and would have eventually lost his resource gathering locations. Pretty hard to come back from that, considering the amount of Dragoons he lost relative to his opponent. But I guess that does conclude. Wait, what's the score?
3-0.
3-0. Oh, I thought it was 4-0 for a moment. I'm going to quit on out, and yeah, we'll be back for the next one in a moment.